Will Guidera was the general manager of 11 Madison Park, a sleek, high-ceilinged Art Deco space on the corner of Madison Avenue and East 24th in Manhattan. It wasn't just any restaurant. It was, at one point, ranked the #1 restaurant in the world, with a tasting menu that ran nearly $400 a head. Everything was choreographed. The pacing of the courses, the synchronized pour of the wine, the white tablecloths so pristine they felt sacred. And it was a chilly spring evening, the kind where the last gasps of winter still hung in the air and guests showed up in scarves and light trench coats. A group of European tourists, mid-40s, slightly overdressed, clearly reveling in the novelty of being in New York, were seated near the window. And as Guidera made his rounds through the dining room, he overheard one of them mention something offhand, almost wistful. "I can't believe we're leaving New York and we never have to try a New York City hot dog." Most fine dining managers would have smiled politely and moved on, but Guidera, whose entire philosophy revolved around this idea of unreasonable hospitality, heard something else. Not a complaint, not a dream, but an opportunity. Without saying a word, he slipped out of the dining room, threw on his coat, walked a half a block to a street vendor parked underneath a flickering lamppost. He bought a single hot dog, probably $3, wrapped in foil, slathered with mustard and sauerkraut, brought it back to the kitchen through the service entrance. And in that kitchen, the team did what only 11 Madison Park could do. They plated it like it belonged on the tasting menu. They garnished it, framed it, made it into a moment. And when it arrived at the table, the guests laughed and then cried. It wasn't just a hot dog. It was being seen. It was someone listening. It was New York delivered on a white porcelain plate. And in a world obsessed with hustle and highlights, maybe that's the only real secret sauce left. Welcome to the Terrible Photographer Podcast, a show about creative survival, artistic identity, and the shit that they don't put in the core syllabus. I'm your host, Patrick Four, and today we're stripping it all back. No hype, no hacks, just the truth about how people actually make it in this industry. So, if you don't know, I'm writing a book. I know, shameless plug. And chapter 13 has to be one of my favorites. It's called Show Up or Shut Up. And I'm in it because somewhere along the way, we started believing that careers happen because of moments. The feature, or the viral post, or the dream client sliding into your inbox like fate. But I think most of the working photographers that I know, that's not how it went down. It happened slowly, quietly, one shoot at a time, the client that refers you, an art director that remembers how easy you were to work with. Someone sees your name on a call sheet and says, "Oh yeah, I really like that guy." And the truth is, you don't have to break through, you build up. So there's this story I heard once about the University of Chicago's conservatory. And deep in their basement, behind a door labeled practice room, there were 3 rows of soundproof boxes, each with a battered upright piano, maybe a chair, and a wall so thin enough to hear Bach massacred next door. A researcher tracked which music students went on to have long careers. Not just moments of brilliance, but real staying power. Everyone assumed it came down to talent, natural ability, but it didn't. It actually came down to hours. The ones who stayed in those rooms, playing the same passage over and over 3 hours a day. No applause, no Instagram clips, just them and their stubborn pursuit of getting better. They weren't the ones winning all the competitions, but they were the ones that kept showing up. And the researchers called it deliberate consistency. And consistency is not sexy, but it is what makes professionals. So let's break it down. The 5 habits that actually move the needle. Show up. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. Be present, even on the small jobs, especially on the small jobs. Work hard. I'm not talking about hustle culture. I'm not talking about burnout, but effort, care, the willingness to revise a shot, to move the light again, to give a damn, and be kind, which is wildly underrated. I've seen better photographers passed over because they were jerks. People remember kindness, especially when the pressure's on. Solve problems. Lighting issue? No problem. Model late? Pivot. Gear broke? We adapt. The best photographers I know are the professional improvisers. Next, listen. A wedding photographer told me this once. Not someone with a giant following, just a guy who shows up 50 weekends a year. He said that he had this bride who smiled all day for the photos, but looked hollow behind the eyes. You'd miss it if you weren't paying attention. So instead of going straight into the sunset portraits, he asked her if she was okay. She told him that her dad had died 2 weeks earlier, that she hadn't told anyone. So he walked her out back, quiet spot, no poses, no pressure, just her sitting with it all. She cried, and he waited. And when she was ready, he took one photo. Not the most dazzling shot, not the shot that will end up in Vogue weddings, but it was the one that she printed. That's what listening looks like. Not reacting, not pushing, just holding space for the stuff that doesn't make the shot list. So there's a lot of invisible work in photography, as you probably know. The kind that no one talks about or posts about. The kind that doesn't fit neatly into a carousel or a BTS reel. It's building relationships that might not pay off for months or years, if ever. It's the emails that you write when you'd rather be shooting. The file deliveries, the versioning, the follow-ups that feel like you're talking into the void. It's quoting projects that will never move forward. Bidding against 10 other photographers for a job that was already decided before your estimate hit their inbox. It's the meetings that go nowhere, the discovery calls that end in polite silence, the PDFs you tweak for hours just to be ghosted. And that work adds up. You don't notice it at first. You just feel tired, like you're shoveling snow in a blizzard. The pile really never seems to shrink. And then one day, it cracks open. The test shoot that you almost skipped because the budget was a joke, it got passed around in an internal Slack channel, and it lands you your biggest client yet. That freebie that you shot as a favor for a friend, a creative director sees it, likes your tone, sends you a job. That one-off branding session for someone's startup, their cousin runs a PR for a national brand. She calls you, you book it. And this is what I've learned after so many years doing this stuff. It doesn't make any sense. The line from action to outcome rarely is linear. But every time you show up, especially when it's inconvenient, unpaid, or uninspiring, You're planting seeds. You just don't get to pick the moment the seed breaks through. But you do get to choose how often you show up with the water. If you do that long enough, something shifts. Not overnight, not all at once, but steadily. And people remember. They start saying your name in rooms that you've never stepped in. You become the photographer who always delivers, who's easy to work with, who can handle the weird lighting, the tight deadlines, the anxious clients, and still make it look intentional. You might not ever be famous. You might never be a trend, but you will be trusted. And in this business, that's the currency that actually pays. So this week, here's what I want you to do as a challenge. I want you to do a tiny audit. I want you to look at the last 5 jobs that you took, paid or unpaid. Did you show up fully? Did you solve problems? Did you listen? Did you bring kindness into the room? And if not, there's no shame here. Just offering you a reset. Because this career isn't about being perfect. It's about being consistent. So show up, you do the work, you stay curious, you repeat. Until then, stay curious, stay courageous, and yeah, stay terrible.